Welcome back. And yet again, we got another Super Duty, and it's a black one. We got this one in here. We're doing another lift kit. So 2 black Super Duties, the last 2 videos with 2 lift kits, both from BDS. Pretty awesome if you ask me. Now, this one here is a 14, I do believe. And yeah, just a super clean truck. But he wants to go 2.5 inches higher. So what we did was go down and see our buddies over at BDS, and we got their radius arms, we got their adjustable track bar, we got new coils, we got shocks, we got a dual steering stabilizer kit, and we got 4-inch rear blocks. So that's gonna bring the back up level to the front when we are done. Now, I got some emails about the last lift that we did, saying that, you know, some people don't have a lift and blah, blah, blah. Well, I did some of that one on the ground, but because of that, we're gonna do this entire install right here on the shop floor with nothing more than a couple jack stands, a jack, and some tools. Just trying to prove, you know, this is something you can do in your own driveway in a weekend or whatever, so don't be scared to tackle something. Now, all that said, I do have all the tools here lined up already. We got the big torque wrench in the back. We got the couple sockets that we need. We got a drill. We got a ratchet. We got an impact gun. We got sockets, tape measure. I just like to provide before and after measurements to the client, so at least they know, I don't know, where it was sitting or whatever, in case it's a little bit lower than they expected. Gloves. We got different hammers. We got knives, paint marker, pliers, screwdrivers, Christmas tree puller, snips, some wrenches, and obviously a breaker bar. Last but not least, we got the grease here hanging from the side, and like I said in the last video, I always do the grease as the very end to make sure that everything's signed off and everything, got all my little ticks on the nuts and whatnot. So, all that being said, what we're gonna do now is jack this poor thing up, and we are gonna get rocking. So, let's go. All right, so we got the wheel out of the way. Now we are going to be replacing the track bar in here. That's what holds the axle left to right in the vehicle. So we need to remove that. We need to remove the shock. We need to remove the big coil springs, and we need to remove this radius arm. So what I'm going to do is pull the ABS wiring off of that radius arm there. It's just got some little Christmas tree plugs. I'm gonna get rid of that, get rid of the shock, and I'm gonna move this brake line here with this one bolt here on the front. Right there, this 10 mil here. The track bar is this guy here, if you can see my fingers. That guy there. And then we have the 2 bolts. One is hidden by the shock on the front of the radius arm, and one back there. So, that's what we gotta do. Let's go ahead, start pulling some of this stuff off. And once I get about half of it off, I'll bring it back in just to show you exactly what we're doing. All right, so we're gonna grab our 24 mil wrench. I'm gonna crack this nut down here on the bottom of the track bar. And then we are going to grab our ratchet, or in my case, the impact gun, and zip it off. Okay, so with the track bar nut loose, I just put it back on like 2 threads so it doesn't fall out. What we're gonna do is grab the jack, put the jack over here under this side of the axle. We're gonna grab a pry bar and pull this coil spring out. All right, so all I've done is throw a jack underneath the ball joint out here on the outside. It's about 1.5 inches lower than the axle, just so when I go ahead and pry this thing down, it can't fall and hit my legs. We're gonna get this coil spring right out of here. So what I do is come in from the bottom, kind of lift the coil. There we go. Just want to make sure that it's not bound on anything. And then the same thing on the top. Come in and pry that little thing down just a little bit. So there you go. Coil spring is out, shock is off, track bar is loose. So now what we want to do is get some weight on the jack, and we're going to come back here and grab this bolt here. There's one right here underneath, and then the one at the back side of this radius arm. We're going to pull that radius arm out while the axle is sitting on the floor jack. So let's get to it. Alright, so there you go. The one back here, like under your foot, if you're sitting in the truck, and then the two up front. So now what we're going to do is go grab the new arm, we're going to throw it in place, throw the new coil in, and we're almost done on this side. Alright, so let me bring you in here and show you a little trick. So what I usually do is throw this bottom bolt in. Now there is a spacer on here, but don't worry about the orientation of that just yet. And then what I'm going to do is put a pry bar. It goes out here in the knuckle and that C right there. And then you can pull the axle backward to line this bolt up. So usually I just do the bottom one here and the one at the back that'll hold the arm in place, and then kind of pull the axle, pivot the axle, if you will, onto that guy. So I got my bolt set up here, I got my pry bar. Let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll bring you back and show you exactly what we do with that spacer and how to set it up so you can get real close without an alignment. Alright, so we got all the hardware loosely in. What we're gonna do now is steal the factory rubber isolator off of the factory coil. And what you wanna do is, right in front of the camera right now, you can see that little notch. Make sure that lines up with the end of the coil, and that's gonna go up on the top. Now, same thing on the bottom. The bottom has a little ear where the coil stops, and that kind of locks into part of the forging on the axle. So what you're gonna wanna do is kind of wipe it real quick like I just did, throw that new coil up in place, and then this side is good enough to jump over to the other. We're gonna loosen everything over there, get it as far as this, and then we're gonna come back, we're gonna slide all the bolts in. With the axle kind of cocked like this, it's real hard to drive those bolts through, or get them through, I should say. So what you wanna do is get everything loosely in place here. We'll put a stand underneath this axle so it can't go anywhere, and we're gonna get the other side caught up to here, and then we'll be able to get all the brackets or the hardware through. Then we can go on to the brake line bracket. Okay, so this is where I do it again a little bit differently than the instructions. So in the instructions, they tell you to tighten the 2 front radius arm bolts to 220 foot-pounds or 225. And then once you put the weight on the vehicle, you tighten up the rearmost one. Now, I don't like to do that because in my opinion, it pulls that bushing that you're tightening to. So what I do is I tighten them up so that they're about snug. Nothing too crazy, I just do it with my hand. And then what I'll go ahead and do now is reattach all the brake lines. I'll zip tie the ABS wiring like they want you to the top of the arm. And then what I want to do is put the wheels back on the vehicle and set it down at ride height. Once it's at ride height, I know it's not going to fall off because I hand tighten those. Then I will go back and tighten them up fully. I do like to do it that way. I guess another way you could do it is go ahead and put an axle stand under the truck so you don't have the wheel here, and you can tighten it up that way. I mean, either way, I like to have all the weight on it, and then once the weight's on it, I'll tighten everything. That includes the sway bar here, and then we will get the track bar put in next. So again, let's pick it up. Let's get it on some stands and put the wheels on or whatever, and then we will be able to continue on with our install. All right, so next step now is we're gonna cut the zip ties off of this factory line up here and over here. And these arms have a small hole. Let's see if I can get you over here, right there. So we're gonna put a zip tie in this hole here, and we're gonna zip tie right as close forward as we can in this one, and that'll kind of get us to that guy there. So let's cut off those ones, we'll get the new ones on, and then we're about ready to start tightening the sway bar and the control arm. Since the weight is already on here, I did jack stands underneath the axle just so it was easier for you guys to see. But now what we'll do is jump behind there, 225 foot-pounds, 1, 2, 3 on each side. And yeah, the front's almost done. Alright, time for the shock. So I've just loosely kind of placed it in the bottom bushing, and now we're about ready to assemble the top. As soon as I go and cut the tie on here, the thing is going to want to extend. So you kind of want to make sure you have your stuff ready. So we have our little steel bushing, and then our poly bushing. We're going to collapse this. That tie will fall out of the way, and then we're gonna let it extend where it's gotta go. Just like that. Now we'll come back afterward and we'll cut that tie right off of there. But for now, we're just gonna get this thing loosely put in place. And we'll wipe it with a little bit of detail spray to get rid of the residue from my glove. But there you go. So now these ties, you can just kind of pull the back of them. There you go, and done and gone. So let's tighten it up and we'll move on to the next one. All right, so now that we have the shocks in, you just saw us kind of torque those up. These shocks don't have a shoulder on the top that you'd bottom that nut out to. So what I do is go until the poly bushing there is the same diameter as the steel one. You'll see it kind of collapse, and as it gets shorter this way, it'll get wider. As soon as those are lined up, you're good. I also tighten the bottom one, same thing. Watch for the poly to just kind of shrink like this. There's no stop on that, so you could actually like take the factory brackets and tilt them in this way, which you don't want to do. So what you want to do is just kind of watch for those things to start coming in. You'll see that poly now is growing in diameter, and you're good. So those are torqued. All the arms are torqued on both sides. The ABS lines are back on, the brake lines are back on, sway bar is reconnected and torqued. So the only thing left now on the front end is the track bar and then adjusting the alignment. So what we are going to do now is drop the wheels back on, and then we're gonna move to the back, and we're going to do the rear blocks. Once those are complete, we're gonna come back up to the front. We're gonna set the track bar and the drag link. The reason I'm gonna do the back first is because you're gonna be moving forward and backward as you align this thing, and you don't really wanna do it with the back end of it sagging down this way. So we'll jump back to the back now. Everything in here is done and complete. We know it's not gonna fall off or go anywhere. So throw the wheels on it and let's see what it looks like with its new stance. All right, so like I mentioned, we got the front pretty much wrapped up. We still need to adjust the drag link. As you can see, the wheels are pretty much straight, but the steering wheel is over on like a 45. So we still need to do the track bar and the drag link up there, but we are going to jump back here and do the U-bolts, the blocks, and the shocks. So much like the last video, there's only 2 bolts on that shock. We're gonna cut the U-bolts with the grinder, and then we're gonna slide the new ones in. So won't be a ton to talk about there. I'll throw it on time lapse and I'll do a voiceover if there's anything crazy that pops up. All right, so we got the back end complete now. As you can see, we got nice new U-bolts there. And if I jump underneath, you can see the nice shiny black new block and shock. So again, super easy, but that's complete. And now our steering wheel is out, as you can see here. So the wheels are straight in the vehicle. So what we want to do is adjust that steering wheel so that it'll come back and sit, you know, as it should, straight on. So what you want to do here is climb underneath. Here we are. Okay, so you can see that guy right there. That's the adjuster tube on this long drag link. So we're going to loosen the 2 bolts that pinch that thing shut, and we're going to rotate that until the steering wheel sits straight. Then you go for a test drive, make sure it is actually straight, and chances are it'll be out a little bit. So then you'll come back, adjust it again, and you continue until you got it. So all that being said, let's climb underneath and get her done. All right, so we got the rear end done now. Block, shocks, and U-bolts are finished back there. Now what I did do, let's jump down here, is I was able to get the track bar in. You can see it right here, and that's the bolt there. Now that bolt has to go to 405 foot-pounds, so again, you need that really big torque wrench. And then the one on the other side here, this is the factory one, so it's real easy to see. So this guy here goes to 405, and then this one down here goes to 185. So nothing too crazy there. It's real tight down there, so there was no real point of doing too much, but I will show you now how I'm going to line the steering wheel back up, and then we're gonna take it for a test drive and make sure that everything is okay. All right, so there you have it. So just like I showed you, you loosen that adjuster tube, those 2 clamps, you can spin it, and now our steering wheel is back straight. So we're gonna take this thing on a test drive. We'll see how it does, if there's any squeaks, rattles, anything like that. And then we're gonna come back, we'll adjust it if anything else is needed. But you know what? Hey, I think it looks incredible. So that's how you're gonna go and install a BDS 1509H, 1509H. So if you have an 11 to 16 Super Duty like this one here, and you wanna go up 2.5 inches, that's how you're gonna do the install. Anywho, I'd like to say thank you for getting this far in the video, and we're gonna shout it out today to Tough Duck. Of course, Tough Duck guys, they make all kinds of outerwear, boots, beanies, jackets, construction, high-vis stuff, face masks. They make all kinds of stuff that you're gonna wear on the outside of all your clothes. Keep you protected from the elements. Now, if you need anything like that, toughduck.com is where you wanna go to get it. Make sure you tell the gang over there that 710 sent you. And hey, hopefully you'll come back for another video. We have lots of stuff going on, as you can see. We got the black Fox body back up here. We're doing a bunch of rear suspension stuff too. We got another new project in the shop. We got all kinds of stuff going on. So hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you on the next video. See ya.